in a situation where you're trying to make a decision or you're trying to determine the correct path, we say, instead of saying, what am I going to get out of this? Ask yourself, who am I becoming if I do this thing or take this direction? And that's really important, because who we're becoming is what it's all about. It's not about a temporary gain. It's about, really, are we taking that correct path that leads us to that ultimate destiny that we were talking about in the beginning?
What's up, everybody? You're listening to the Hustle and Flowchart podcast with your boys, Matt Wolf and Joe Fear.
Alrighty, Mark and Crystal, thank you for joining us today. It's great to have you.
It's our great pleasure. Thank you, men, for having us.
So happy to be here with you too.
Yeah, and we're both sharing in the sun. You said you're in Scottsdale, where it's a nice, great day. You've been to Portugal already today, virtually. You guys you're on a war path right now. I feel like, in a great way, to get this book out to the world. Ask, and let me read this up. The bridge from your dreams to your destiny. And I had a great time reading this book, and thank you for sharing it with us as well. And I think it came out at a great time of last year, right in the middle of the pandemic, and everybody's stuck up and probably not talking to a lot of folks to a lot of the folks outside of their bubble. So it's there's so much opportunity that you guys give in this book here, the both of you. And but before jumping into that, I'm kind of curious of both of your backgrounds a little bit. I know Mark, it was last year, 309 books published. You said it's going to be about 15, was it, by the end of the year?
We're at 312 right now. It'll be 318 by the end of the year, because I teach that everyone ought to write a book. And I even wrote a book called You Have a Book in You. It looks like this. But the bottom line is that you got to write 2 or 3 books at the same time, because everyone says, well, I have writer's block. You write a couple books at a time. You cannot have writer's block on all of them.
That's a good point.
I love that. Well, how many books right now are you? So it sounds like you have at least 2 or 3 in the works. I mean, it sounds like you have more like 10 in the works.
and some of them are really, really big books too. One that I'm going to do a quick aside, and I'll go back to our book Ask, but I never expected to get asked to write a biography of somebody that's very famous who has to go unnamed right now. But we took the assignment because I thought every one of us is supposed to challenge ourselves. And right now, because of what you said about COVID, we think the only way to get out of this cocoon called COVID is to ask. And we think we've written the seminal book, the book that gets everybody awake, based on the transformation that's literally happening around the world. I mean, in the old days, to sell 500 million books that I've done, you go to bookstores, and we were all set to do that. We had 2 giant conferences, one in Washington, D.C. with 11,000 people, and one in Florida with 15,000. We were going to sell that many books at one meeting. And what happened is the promoter calls up and says, I just lost $5 million. They've shut me down, and you're fired. And I got it. You're not. You can't blaspheme him. The government shut us down. We can't have anybody show up, which is tragic, because I think there's community and immunity in community. And I mean, look, you 2 guys hang out.
Yeah, still here. We've stayed at pretty cool in our bubble, more or less, for the podcast. But you're right. I mean, there's so much opportunity, and I feel like a lot of folks maybe are just not aware of what's right at their fingertips, within them, around them. God, universe, whatever you call it, a bigger thing than you. So I would love to hear, and Crystal too. I mean, you've been writing books, and you guys co-wrote this book.
Yeah. So I'm a transformational life coach, clinical hypnotherapist. So, my work is all about helping people get rid of that baggage that I call messy thinking, and really rediscover the best parts of yourself. So Mark and I, this is the first book we've co-written, and it was really fun. I mean, we didn't know what to expect, but it went really well. We each kind of just got in our lane and wrote to the areas that we're strong, respectively in. And then I was kind of the one who brought it all together and made sure the transitions were all there and put it together. And I did that final edit. And then it was funny, because when we gave it to our publisher, there's usually a pretty robust edit that happens at the publisher's level. And it was really pretty light. I mean, I went through this book so many times to make it perfect that on my editing part, when I got to the editing phase of it, you kind of do your own self edit and then hand it over to the publisher. But they were really, I was so shocked that they didn't. Sometimes they'll move chunks of your book around and be like, let's do this here. And They didn't do any of that. They were just like really accepting of our vision for the book. And, you know, it was just down to a few, arguments on line edits and stuff like that. So yeah, it was really cool.
Mark, has that always been the case for you, or is Crystal the brains behind the operation now?
I told you, I'm just a pretty face.
Doing it well.
I've been writing since I was 16 years old, so that's a lot of years, because I'm 73 years young and going to live to be 127 with options for renewal. And
love it.
And the way we've gotten out of problems is to ask yourself, ask others, ask God. The three channels we believe everyone's got to know, and no one's ever had a mirror say, hey, look at this, and here's the specific questions inside. Because you don't get what you desire and deserve, you get what you ask for. And what happens is everyone says, ask and you shall receive. We all got the line, but no one ever went deep on it as far as we could see. And we said, wait a second, every major problem we've had individually and collectively, we asked our way out of it. And then we interviewed 26 superstar askers like you just read about. And we went, oh my God, it's a universal solution. But most people right now are saying, I'm scared. I'm in my bubble. I'm not ever going to get out of here. The TV is my answer. No. Out there isn't the answer. Crystal will teach you in a second. It's in what you said intuitively inside, right? The kingdom of heaven is within, shows up without. And what happens is you got to control this. And the only way you control it is by asking yourself the right question to get the right answer and the right result and the right activity and the right direction. And what we're saying in the subtitle is to your destiny. And we're saying, hey, look, guys, everybody's coded with a great destiny. We believe at birth. Now, could you have multiple destinies over a lifetime? Absolutely. But the point is, you've got a major destiny that you're supposed to fulfill. If you're alive, you're still got a destiny. And we just watched the near death. 20,000 people in near death were interviewed for that video on Netflix right now. Wow. Every one of them came back with one line only. And the line was, your job's not done, Bubba. You got to come back. You're not done.
Yeah. Well, define destiny in your guys' words in this context. I'd love to hear it.
You know, I think that destiny is the ultimate expression of you. That place where all of those amazing qualities and the greatest expression of you meets the most amazing opportunity that is life-changing for you and others around you. And I think really that's your ultimate destiny.
That's good. Yeah. And the book so clearly lays out, and even the layout of the book is so simple to just jump to a section, you know, maybe it's business and maybe it's health and, you know, relationships. And you can see these specific questions of exactly what you're saying, where you can ask in all these three different modalities, very specific questions, and probably get back wildly different answers potentially from the different sources.
Well, one of the stories we have in there is Peter Guber, who's very famous in your state and one of our dear friends. But Peter Guber, you know, starts as a little kid. He's a Jewish kid in New York. Family has zero money. He's shoveling snow and all that, hires other kids to shovel snow, gets enough scholarship ability by asking himself, well, where can I go to school? Gets to the best school in New York. Every kid there is rich, except he doesn't have money for a car. He can't take a girl out on a date. He can't afford a meal. So this isn't good. There's got to be enterprise value. I'm going to ask myself, what's the enterprise value? Finds out that every kid doesn't want to take, rich kids don't want to take in their dry cleaning and laundry. Nope. So he starts doing that. He ends up getting 17 kids to put it together, go through a dry cleaner, gets a dry cleaner to give it 50 off and 20 to him. A launderer, the same thing. And what happens is he gets into all those universities, makes so much money by asking and asking. He finally asked this one woman out who he's been married to for 58 years. Wow. He's 80 years old, young now, and our dear friend. We vacation with him 17 days. And so the guy's, if you know the term mensch, he's a mensch. Right? But I mean, you know, he made 50 major movies. He's got more Academy Awards for Rocky, for Batman, for Rain Man, for, you know, Lawrence of Arabia, all that stuff. And then we're sitting with him at dinner, and I said, say, Peter and Tara, what are you doing now? He said, now remember, I came out of real poverty. So she had some largesse in her family, but I did not. I had earned my way since I was 9 years old. So like Peter, and that's why we're such buds. But I never expected what he said next. He said, oh, I bought a little sports team today. I said, oh, yeah, really? And I get goosebumps saying this. I said, what was it? He said, a little thing called the Golden State Warriors. I said, really? Yeah. Just and I'm such an ass. I said, well, what did you pay for it? He said, $170 million.
You're like, hold on, need a breath. Yeah.
For people out there listening, he also owns the Dodgers. And the point is, you can get anywhere you want with asking. And he said, look, everyone's got enterprise value in them. And that's part of what Crystal defined destiny better than I've ever heard her define it. Just a second. We got to write that down. It was so good. But we're going to have to listen to this podcast, guys. Is it Peter's had a destiny because he employs more people, does more stuff, and still has more freedom than anyone. I mean, we traveled with him, and he does fun stuff. And you got to learn how to ask to get yourself fulfilled. Ask yourself, ask others, ask God. And he does all that to the fulfillment of his soul and mind and body and all of his employees.
It almost like I'm getting this sense when you're telling that story, because I remember reading it and it was amazing, he's creating momentum with all the questions, with it sounds like he's just asking, and anyone can do this to gather or gain that momentum and kind of get unstuck in whatever unstuck means. Would you kind of agree with that?
That's exactly right. And that's what asking does. It allows us to just keep our journey moving forward, because there is nothing that has the ability to reveal what is hidden like asking. And let's face it, in life, there's always stuff that we're just not going to know. And we get stuck and we get in a certain situation and we don't see a way out of it. And we don't have any answers, but we always have questions. And it's by being able to form the right question at the right time in the right way to find that correct answer that's going to move you to the next place and the next place and the next place. You ask a question and suddenly you get an illumination. You go, oh, wow. You ask another question and the solution drops into your head, and question by question, answer by answer, suddenly you are moving your path forward in an accelerated way. It's really the only way to get out of your stuckness. And that's why it's so important right now for people to read this book and really pay attention to the principles and the lessons and the stories, because each one of us there's a little bit of each of us in all of our stories. And that's the truth. And we can learn so much from their stories. They're like metaphors for our own lives.
Mm. Now, I'm curious. So the concept of asking a lot of questions, it sounds like a simple concept, but there's obviously reasons people don't ask a lot of questions. And I know part 1 of the book goes into all of the reasons why people would avoid asking these questions. So can we go there for a minute and just kind of run through some of the reasons that people avoid asking questions in the first place?
Perfect. We call it the 7 roadblocks to asking. And the first one is a sense of self-worthiness. This is your self-esteem on bail, so to speak, of who am I? I can't ask you guys that question or whatever, right? The second one is like fear, which is false evidence appearing as real. And fear is faith upside down and inside out and reversed at some levels. The next one is just plain stubbornness. We got a great story from my own brother about that, who was a brilliant guy, photograph of mine, but stubborn as hell. Next is doubt, right? We just either go, if I ask them, they'll think I'm stupid, arrogant, dumb, or I don't know. I should know. This is my job, or this is my wife, this is my relationship, or whatever it is. So we all have those kind of doubts. Next one is pattern paralysis, where Einstein said, if you keep doing the same thing and expect something new, you're cuckoo, which in German means crazy, which a lot of us are crazy because you keep going to the same job and expect a bonus or a raise and don't understand that you're not fulfilling your destiny. And that's what maybe the best thing out of this thing is people are going, hey, wait a second, I got to re-vector, I got to re-pivot, I got to go in a new direction, which is the first thing you guys said, is that's what asking does. It gets you to do that. And then the last one, and we can talk to any one of them in depth in every way, but the last one's disconnection, which is really heartbreaking to me. And I'll just do it at the level of, we go to restaurants, we still can move around here in Arizona. And we also have been to Florida where we got relatives, and all these kids live in their cell phone instead of talking to each other when they're at dinner. And you go too much, hey guys, in the old days, window deal time, if you're a salesman like I was, but now it's screen time, both computer and cell phone. You go, boy, you are disconnected. And we worked in China like 80 times, and then people walk down the street and they got 2 cell phones and they're walking with us. You go, whoa.
2 brains. Yeah.
I hope I didn't go too far on that.
Not at all. No, I think it's, these roadblocks, the 7 roadblocks, like you were saying here, they're interesting because you can kind of look deep into any one of them. I mean, one of them that stands out for me is pattern paralysis. The fact that you're kind of just stuck in your own head. Maybe there's a childhood stuff that might have not given you some perspective. I'd love for you to kind of elaborate on that, Crystal.
Yeah. So it's funny because you see that all the time. And I'm sure, we recognize that in ourselves, at least at some point in our lives. I honestly think when we talk to people that we've probably recognized these 7 roadblocks at least once in our lives. And some of them are more prevalent. But that pattern paralysis, it's that thing where, you know, what you're doing didn't work last week or last month or last year. And, you know, it's not going to work next week, next month, and next year, but you just keep doing it because you're stuck in this pattern and you just keep doing the same thing over and over, and you never stop to challenge it. You never stop to ask yourself the right questions. Is this working? You know, is this producing the result I want, whether it's in my relationships? And this happens all the time in relationships where, you know, we trigger each other and we have these patterns that we're locked into, and we can make each other miserable, and we never stop to challenge the pattern and go, are we paralyzed by this pattern that's just wrecking us and just stealing all of our joy and happiness and the potential to have a great relationship? So it's when you stop and you start asking the questions. And that's what we're encouraging people to do, is when you recognize that you're in that pattern paralysis where nothing is changing, whether it's in your work or your and business life or your relationships, all relationships, or even in your health and wellness. You know, you're doing the same thing and like, oh, I know I'm out of shape, but you know, I can't get in shape because this, or I'll start eating, you know, better after this, or, you know, after this holiday, and then after this holiday, and then after this holiday. And suddenly the whole year is full of holidays. So there's never that time, right? And so looking at your own destructive patterns and going, start questioning them. Is this really working? And really being honest enough to answer those questions, you know, candidly to yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a question, I believe I might miss the wording a little bit, but who am I becoming? Or, you know, it's the becoming question. And I remember reading that, and it could be applied, I'm assuming, to pretty much every one of these to kind of put a little magnifying glass on yourself.
Right. And we talk about that in the spiritual part of it, because it's like the question pivot, right? So instead of, when you're in a situation where you're trying to make a decision or you're trying to determine the correct path, we say, instead of saying, you know, what am I going to get out of this? Ask yourself, who am I becoming if I do this thing or take this direction? And that's really important, because who we're becoming is what it's all about. It's not about a temporary gain. It's about, really, are we taking that correct path that leads us to that ultimate destiny that we were talking about in the beginning?
Yeah. Well, you had a couple.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you know, Joe brought up the pattern paralysis. I think for me, the fear one is the one that resonates the most with me. And it's one of those things that's interesting, because there's people that I could probably ask questions to that would have the solution to the problems I have, but I'm afraid to ask those questions to those people, but I can't really put into words why I don't want to ask those questions. So I think it'd be interesting to speak into that for a minute, because, you know, from a business standpoint, there's probably a lot of people that have been where we're trying to go. And if we just found those right people and asked those right questions, they can give us the path to follow. Yet we're still scared to reach out to those people. We're scared to ask the questions. I know for us, there's a little bit of, I'll speak for myself, but I'm guessing also with Joe, but there's a little bit of this element of, if I ask this person this question, they'll realize I'm not as good as I think they think I am, you know, that kind of thing. So a little bit of this sort of dignity element. So let's talk about the fear one for a second. Like, why do you think that people are scared to ask for the solutions from the people that we know have the solutions?
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to use my own story, and then I'm going to do your exact question. Is it 1974? I go bankrupt. I'd been in graduate school with Bucky Fuller. I tried to be him. He invented geodesic domes, and I built the Wall Street Racquet Club, Botanical Gardens 8 years. I'm a young hotshot, and I thought, am I cool or what, man? But I was building out of plastic at exactly the wrong time, right? We had an oil embargo, and suddenly I couldn't get any, which was my worst experience, as it turns out. And I went bankrupt so fast, I asked myself the wrong question. I said, if you ask the wrong question, you get full of fear and go the wrong. I said, what if I go bankrupt? I checked a book out of the library because I had no money. How to go bankrupt by yourself. And so for 6 months, I'm in Hicksville, Long Island, New York, sleeping in a sleeping bag in front of another guy's room. And I kept asking myself, what am I really supposed to do? This is a question that she articulated, your destiny. We all have at least one and maybe multiple, just like we all have multiple roadblocks. And I said, I want to talk to people that care about things that matter, that would make a life-changing difference. I go to my roommates, 3 guys at breakfast, and I say, hey, I want to be a professional speaker. Do you know anyone that's young? Not a lawyer, not a doctor, not a celebrity, not a Broadway star. The guy said, yeah, there's this kid a few years older than you. He's out talking at Hallmark. He's really sensational. And by the way, I'm not going. Here's my ticket. When you get over your fears, miracles happen. Miracles are spontaneous events. I race out to Hauppauge Langon. This guy mesmerized the audience for 3 hours. At the end of which, his name Chip Collins became my great friend. But I went up and I said, I'm Mark Victor Hansen. You got no reason to want to do this, but I want to take you. I'm asking you, will you let me take you to lunch? Teach me how to do this crazy business. He said, chance of you making the kids 1 in 1,000. You saw me do it. Nobody can do what I do. You're not going to make it. And I go, oh, yeah. Let me just ask. He said, you stay out of real estate. I own the 5 boroughs of New York. I'll teach you how to do it if you stay in life insurance and stay out of my market. I said, okay. I did 1,000 talks a year the first 3 years in life insurance. Tony Robbins and I said, we're the only 2 guys we knew that were that crazy, because if you want massive success, you got to take massive result. But the point is, we got rejected a lot. And then people started liking the story, which is a way to get out of your fear by following somebody else's story that's cut it. That's why we do 26 stories in here. But people kept saying, Mark, you got these great stories, which is, I'm a story man forever. So they said, do you have it in a book? And the first book I did, this is 1975, maybe, Stand Up, Speak Out and Win. And I sold it to little audiences, 6 people of a real estate, an insurance office, or 7 or 10, never over 50. And I said, look, this isn't a New York Times bestseller, not even a national bestseller, but it is my bestseller. And I want to sign it to you, your spouse, and your dog if you got one. And we all did what you 2 guys did, but they gave me $10 for the book. I sold 20,000 copies, $10, $200,000. That's like $2 million today.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, one more time, I had a new car. I had everything I wanted, all because I learned how to ask and overcome the fear. Because went back to your question. I didn't know anyone in insurance. I didn't own any insurance. I didn't know what a premium was. I didn't know what a chartered life fund. I didn't nothing. But you did confront your fears, and Napoleon Hill said, and you just make it disappear, right? And everyone's got fear. And the question is will you confidently go, and Thoreau said, confidently go in the direction of your heart's desire, and you'll have success unexpected in common hours. So you guys got big stuff. And so last thing then, Matt, is we give you full permission to ask anybody, and fall in your face. You call them and you say, look, Mark Victor Hansen told me he did it. He's an idiot. He's an obstreperous, whatever you want to say. But I'm going to have fearlessly ask.
I want to add one thing to that, you guys, because it's important for the audience to know this and for you guys to know it. But we did a lot of research on, for this book and into asking. Mm-hmm. And that very question you asked, Matt, why are we so afraid? Mm-hmm. And so as it turns out, most people are afraid, which is one of the reasons we wrote this book. Why are people afraid to especially ask other people for help, assistance, information, whatever? Everyone going into the study felt the same way you did. Like, gosh, if I ask this question, I'm going to appear to be stupid, ignorant, uninformed, or they're going to think I'm pushy and obnoxious if I'm asking for some help in some way. It turns out that just the opposite is true, that people actually have a desire to help other people. They like helping other people. And that if you're just willing to put yourself out there, there's an 80% more likely chance that you will get your request granted. But most people don't do it because of this fear of all those things, all those misperceptions that we go in with. So it's so important to know what the real science is behind it. We're all wrong about that. And it comes from our roadblocks that we were talking about before. And then the other important thing is the people who were better askers of questions. So often we hold back even in conversations, business conversations, or say in a new relationship or something, a love relationship, or dating someone. The people who ask the most questions, and especially the most probing questions, were the ones who were found at the end of the sessions to be more likable. Like the person in business was, the perception was, I like this person more, who asked a lot of questions. And same thing in dating. There was a dating study done by Harvard. The person who asked the more questions was the one who was more likely to get the second date. So and that part is the curiosity piece, being curious about the person with whom we're trying to forge this relationship. Because so often as the business people, we go into a scenario and we have our, grocery list of things we want to get out of something, out of a relationship. And we're so we start talking about ourselves, like, I can do this for you. I can do that for you. I'm so great at this. You should hire me for this or that, Yep. And we forget, like, we can't really have that trust that's going to create a transaction ultimately, unless we really have bonded with someone in some way. And the only way to bond is to ask enough questions that, first of all, that person feels like you genuinely know them and you genuinely are interested in them. And that's why it's important to kind of look into those probing questions we talk about that take you a little deeper into the conversation. So it's really about rekindling the ask, rekindling this amazing curiosity that we're all born with, and really getting out there with it and owning it and being excited about it, because it starts to change absolutely everything.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, that's an amazing answer. And I'm just, as you're talking, I'm like, wow, yeah, through our podcast, the 4 years now we've been doing this, and it's crazy because it's been a practice of asking and curiosity, digging, and kind of going back to just childhood curiosity, and we feel like we just, I don't know, we just have more of an open, we're just not really so worried about what the reaction is, but like, let's just ask the question, or, frame it in a way where it is purely curiosity based, because it is. And for us, it's been trained into us, I think, by doing so many interviews now. I mean, how would you suggest folks to kind of practice this in their own lives, maybe in this bubble that a lot of us find ourselves in?
Okay, so I'm going to do that second. I'm going to go to the first paragraph of what you just said is,
sure.
Anytime you ask, you're going to have illumination, revelation, insight. And that's why it's important to ask. So now the answer is, as what we're discovering is that people go through the book, they buddy up with somebody. So they get 2 books and they go through every question in the book. And then sometimes they're writing it out. Sometimes they're doing it. Sometimes they're tape recording it.
Yep.
But what they're doing is they're saying, holy cow, I'm having a transformation of my soul and my spirit. And I'm finding out who I really am. And all of us have been this, well, you called it a bubble. I'm going to call it a cocoon, right? The butterfly cocoon. And I'm saying the only way out of that transformation, right? Everybody starts as a little caterpillar. Now we've been stuck in this cocoon for 1 year, and it's opening up finally, hopefully, even in San Diego.
It is.
I'm reading that you guys are opening up again. Well, as you burst out of it, you better ask questions, and they got to be new questions, because we're in the most transformative time in human history where stuff's going to happen now faster than it's ever happened. And if you're awake, alive, and enthusiastic and asking the right questions to the right people, you're going to get the right results, go the right direction, and get to your rightful destiny, your right livelihood. Because, if you have money freedom, then you get to have time freedom, relationship freedom, technology freedom, happiness freedom, and spiritual freedom. And we're saying, wait a second, let's have this whole rose bloom for each and every person. But as a rose opens up, it only works if you got ASK inside it, as far as we're concerned.
Yeah. I mean, what I've realized, it's asking, you said something in the book, I'm trying to, again, frame it, but it's every question gets an answer. It kind of leaves breadcrumbs, or at least gets you a little further down the path. It seems
absolutely like there's no question that the universe will not answer at some point. We have really absolutely discovered that. And the interesting thing is, when you start asking yourself questions, studies show that it lights up a different part of your brain. And it's the part of your brain that does critical thinking. So suddenly, as you start to ask yourself those questions, your brain becomes a better resource to you. And not only that, when you're really asking God and really putting it out there to the universe, what that is you're acknowledging that you're a part of this creation, you're a part of this kingdom. So you're kind of giving your whole life and all of your efforts, the context of that. And that's powerful. Like, what is my part in this universe? What is my part in this creation, this kingdom, and it really makes a tremendous difference. And I think when people start asking in that way, asking God, it really gives you a lot of peace, because you feel so much more connected in a broader, more spiritual way to everything and everyone.
Is there like a specific mechanism that you use when you say, asking yourself questions or asking God questions, what does that look like? Is that like meditation? Is that journaling? Is there like a specific sort of exercise or specific mechanism that you prefer to ask those questions with?
Yeah, so we start every day with this 1 hour prayer and meditation time. And honestly, you guys, it is the most important time of our day. We all prioritize our lives in such an interesting way. We prioritize our lives for the things outside of us. And the reality is, your life is not created in the external world. Your life is created in your own internal world. So if you understand that, you'll realize and start reprioritizing this time with yourself and with God. And so we take that time in the morning to, meditate, pray, ask questions of ourselves and each other to make sure we're still on track, and also to get clarity, because what happens, we all learn and we think we have things mastered, and then suddenly, bam, something hits us in life. There are always these things like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened. We need to find a way out of it. We need to be able to see a clear solution or get that illumination that we're seeking. And the only way we're going to get that is by spending that time with ourselves, literally writing, start asking yourself the question and write the questions down. And it's amazing. Leave some space for the answers, because as you start to write these questions down, you will start the answers will come to you. And make sure it might come to you later, but go back and write it down. Because when you look back on your life, your journal and all of your writings about your life, you'll realize the magic behind your life, the magic that's fueling your life as you are willing to take this asking journey and ask those questions. And then, of course, in that quiet space, always asking God. And then that's something Mark and I do pretty much all day. I feel like my life is so much better when I'm when I am connected to the creator of the universe, because the source of all creation, there's a lot of power there. And so why would I want to do this life alone? So I always refer to God, refer to the creator, however you personally think or refer to God. But it's so important to each of us together and individually to always sort of be in that space where we're looking beyond. I feel like it's looking into the magic of the universe. And I'll tell you what, how I'd say the last decade was the decade of the why. This decade is going to be the decade of the ask. That's how important and prevalent this message is. And it's becoming, we're taking this message around the world, and it is taking off like crazy.
Well, I think it's a perfect time. Last year, in 2020, when the lockdown started happening, we started doing a lot of live streams, and that's when we got connected with Jay Abraham originally, and brought him on. And he was talking about collaborations. He's a master at deal making, of course, and getting really creative with it. That's what lights our brains up. And with that though, it got me thinking. I'm like, wow, everyone's really open to collaboration right now. And that was 2020, but now in 2021, I feel like it's even kicked up a whole bigger notch. And like you said, Crystal, I think this is a perfect time to ask the questions and realize we are way more connected than ever before, but a lot of us are just kind of blind to it right now.
So I want to add your question to Matt's question earlier about connecting to other people and asking. So we're talking about your business, but we're talking about everybody out there, because everybody's in the same business, right? So what we teach and ask is that you got to write a list of 200 people you want to spend time with, play with, grow with, expand with, do business with, have fun with, have adventure. And I'd say a decade before I met Jay, to use that as an example, I did everything I said because the internet was coming out, maybe a little before that. I put his picture next to mine, and we did the same thing with Richard Branson. You pick whomever you want, the highest minds that you guys want to interview, and you put those pictures together and you say, well, how's that going to happen? You don't have to know how. Subconscious, you got conscious, subconscious goes up to, in secular language, superconscious, and spiritual language, it's God, infinite intelligence, universal wisdom. And the point is, universal wisdom figures out the HOW. That's why you got to be a full-time asker. And we're saying, hey, wait a second. We want everyone to get the book, read the book, buddy up on the book. And you can get it at a bookstore, get it, otherwise get it at Amazon. And then we want you to go to askthebookclub.com, because we want everyone to become a master asker. And what happens is once they become a master asker, you'll be fearless. You're going to ask to meet with somebody, and you say, well, let's go backwards to Jay. If you weren't his friend already, and everyone that came on your podcast at the end, you said, you know Jay Abraham. And I'd say, yeah, we're literally great friends, our wives and everything. So the point is, somebody can get you to anyone. In the old days, where what you just said, Joe, is about 6 degrees of freedom. Now I think we're more close to 2, where within 1 or 2 calls, you can probably get to almost anyone on the phone. Like the podcast we did in Portugal, this lady done everybody. I mean, Dalai Lama and Deepak and us, and she was so wonderful. And she wants to do some more stuff with us. And you go, if it wasn't for podcasting, we wouldn't know. And if you forgive one brag, but I'm answering your question about collaboration.
Sure.
We will ask you guys for other podcasts that you want us to go on, but we have literally been in one day across America, Canada, Israel, Africa, and finishing up with 10 million people in Vietnam. And our book sales are different than they've ever been, because in the old days, we do the 20 big city tour and go to the biggest bookstore in New York and the best in Portland. And I can name all of them because I've been to Tattered Cover and all those bunches of times and meet the people. But now all of us can meet all of us on podcasts and phonecasts and Clubhouse and all the new social media, that we're part of some new stuff that's coming forth that's going to even make it easier and better. So we're in the most exciting, if you're awake, and I'm convinced that the people listening to you are awake, and if you learn how to ask positively and correctly, your world will just open up like a wonderful lotus flower.
Yeah, there's no doubt at all. And just as a mechanism, this podcast has allowed us to kind of, I guess, put our hand into, force our hand. I don't want to say it that way, but it gets us asking all the time. And that was one of the reasons why we even created this. It's a machine that allows us to really do exactly what you just said there, Mark. And yeah, right now, it's an interesting time. And I'm kind of curious, how are you... like, are you going to go back to, and it's hard to tell the future, but now with book sales being so different for you, like, as you said, in podcasts, how is this changing your perspective of just book marketing or marketing in general, since you've been doing this so long?
Right.
Okay. So I say, when you write a great book, and obviously I got a new one out called You Have a Book in You. And it's a great book, because I say everybody's got to write their own book. And I say the best book hasn't been written yet because you haven't written it. So, and I really believe everyone's got a story to share, and that's what we did, in the whole life. So I want to do bookstores again. I love bookstores. They're called indies, independents. And Jack, Dr. Canfield, and I did more independents, I think, than anyone else. And we've been consistent, going to them. And if you go to a bookstore through an airport in the old days, Hudson's, you'd walk in and you'd sign every book, and it'd say signed by author. And people would walk up to you while you're signing and say, "You're him?" And I go, and they said, "Can I give you a hug? You kept my marriage alive. You kept my kid in school. You did chicken soup for the college soldiers, saved me, and chicken soup for the teenage, so my teenager would read to me." So it just, books are critically important. And for the first time, they're going to be inexpensive enough to get to everybody. So we've come so far, so fast. And for the most part, we all see the problems, but we don't see the opportunity. And what I love about your show is that an entrepreneur takes a problem, fixes it, scales it, and makes a vast profit. And that's what, we're trying to teach with Ask. Go ask, what is the problem that you're uniquely born to solve? And then go solve it and make a fortune and buy the rest of our books.
Hey, we got a lot to work through. We got time in our hands now, right?
Forgive me, I couldn't resist.
That's good. We'll list them all in the show notes. I don't know.
Thank you.
So I have a question. It's kind of going back to the asking other people questions, and this is just me. I'm a super overanalyzer, and that's probably one of the things that holds me back from asking a lot of questions, is this sort of analytical thing that goes on in my head. But my question is, if I was to go to 3 different successful business owners and ask for advice from all 3 of them, I could potentially get 3 different pieces of advice. They could tell me, one would say, go do path A, path B, path C. Me being an overanalyzer, I would probably go, okay, he's saying do this, she's saying do this, he's saying do this. I'm probably just not going to do anything, because I'm going to need to analyze a little bit which path to go down. So do you have any sort of filtering or analysis that you do for figuring out if you're asking the right questions, and if you're, if you get multiple sort of solutions? How do you decide which solution to go down? I know it's a sort of open-ended, confusing question, and I'm still trying to word it in my brain, but I think you guys understand what I'm asking.
See what I'm dealing with over here? I'm just kidding.
No, I totally get it, Matt. And it's such a good question because, yeah, sometimes you're going to get different feedback and advice. And that's where, that's why we talk about these 3 channels, because the asking journey is not just about going and asking everybody else what you should do. It's 3-pronged, and each one is equally important. So to ask yourself, ask others, ask God. When you ask a bunch of people and they're experts and they're helping you, and the advice is a little bit different, or there are differing, aspects to it, then you need to sit with yourself, because honestly, the more you do this, I promise you, the more you sit with yourself and ask yourself these questions, you will come to rely on your own intuition, because when you ask yourself, the answer comes through your own mind and then through your own intuition. And especially when you're asking God, it's like, these answers you get sometimes that are just like, whoa, where did that come from? That's, so ask yourself and ask God, just, can you guide me on this? Just expand your awareness to God's perfect universe where all the answers are. And, here and lay out your scenarios and imagine each one of them, and then start to rely on yourself and feedback from God. Like, what is the best way? Which thing feels the best to me? And I know people guys probably have a harder time with the feeling thing, but feelings are powerful. It's power. The feeling you have about something is actually very powerful feedback. So learn to rely on that a little bit more and test it a little bit. When you act on something, when you decide a certain way, you'll start to get feedback in the form of successes. You'll go, wow, I'm so glad I did that. That was amazing.
Well,
Can I add to what she said?
Oh yeah, please go.
Sorry, Matt, I love the question. I love her answer. Experientially for me, I said, my question was, because I say, ask big, right? I say, how do you think thoughts bigger than you've ever thought before for bigger and better results? So I said, how do I become world's best-selling author? And so when Jack and I got together, I said, well, I'm going to interview the 101 best-selling fiction and nonfiction authors. Now, I had everybody, Wayne Dyer, Barbara DeAngelis, Deepak, every one of them accepted the interview. I didn't want to know how to write. I've been writing since I was 16. I thought I was pretty good at it. I still think I'm pretty good at it. I've got credit because I'm visible. I got a target on my back. But what I did is I interviewed and I said, guys and ladies, how did you market to become the all-time bestseller? And all of what you said, Matt, they all had different answers. So I wrote them all out. We created a wild business plan. But what Jack and I did is we did a wall board that was clear, like what you guys got behind you. It looks like, other than the bookshelf, which thank you for books, is that we did 1,094 yellow stickies. And what Jack and I did is spend days reprioritizing and say, we're going to do all of them. And we're going to do them in this sequence. Now, still 144 publishers said, hit the road, Jack. And I said, look, it's okay with me if you don't like him.
Yeah. Partnership here.
He's negotiable.
The point is, he's a great guy. And then our agent fired us, and we sold it ourselves at the American Bookseller Association. Yeah. But we knew what we were going to do that no one had ever done before, because one of the guys we did was a road less travel. Dr. Scott Peck had gone to Harvard with Jack, so I got to him. Jack said, aren't you afraid? I said, hell, he was your classmate. Why would you be afraid to talk to him? Anyhow, that's irrelevant. I said, look, all the guy's going to do is say no or go to hell or whatever he says, or I'm not telling you my secret because it's mine, But like you find out with Jay, there's so much to know. And as Jay unfolds it, he keeps coming up with new ideas.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It doesn't stop ever. And I hope they never will.
No. Hey, 18 hours. Can we go to bed now?
Trust me. I know. I have a lot of his products. I'm like, I want to go through them all, but when do I sleep? They're all great.
Fun and prolific.
No kidding. Well, you mentioned this whole, and I know we kind of touched on it before, but this fear of rejection or the no. And I remember in the book reading that section, I'm like, this, I feel like you can kind of get past that mental blockage of the fear of no. It's like, oh, this N-O word is just going to come out and grab you, and slap you around if you say the wrong thing. It's like, no, that's not the case. I'd love to hear you guys, both of y'all, speak into that and how a lot of folks can get past that.
Yeah, I want to back it up a little bit, because we need to remember who we are. And we come into this world as children, these beautiful little innocent beings, so uncorrupted in our ability to ask for everything. We want to know who, what, when, where, why, how. And we also are not ashamed to ask for more. And we're not ashamed, or afraid to ask for basically anything because we kind of want everything and we want to have it. And so if you think about it, that is like your little perfect human spirit wanting to evolve, wanting to grow, wanting to experience everything. And that, we believe, is exactly why children grow so rapidly and develop so rapidly, and their evolution is so fast, because they have no filters to their curiosity. They just keep asking and asking. We all come into this world as these beautiful little master askers, right? And then depending on how we were parented, how we were schooled, what happened in our school experience, what happened in our job experience, and just basic life rejection, we started to get shut down. Somebody embarrassed us, humiliated us. We were told our opinion wasn't valuable, or what we wanted wasn't important, right? And so we believed it. We took it in and kind of stored it at some place at an emotional level. And suddenly, as adults, we're standing here, all these years later, basically terrified to ask anyone for anything, because we don't want to repeat that emotional pain or drama that we've experienced in the past. And we're also ashamed to not already have all the answers. Yeah. And think about how sad that is, you guys, because there's no way in this world any of us can have all the answers. And so we're really inviting everybody to come to step back into a little bit more of your childlike self, have that wonder about the world and what else is there for you, and have that trust, that wonder and trust that children have, that it's okay. And there's a certain beautiful humility to that. It's almost like an intellectual humility where you're saying, you know what, I'm big enough to acknowledge that I certainly do not and could not possibly have all the answers. So why would I pretend that I do? I'm comfortable in that intellectual humility, that I have a great desire to learn the things that I don't know. And if we can embrace ourselves a little bit more like that, understanding that those feelings that come up were just emotional trauma or drama, and that we need to say, you know what, it's time to let that go. It's controlling me, and it's controlling my forward movement. It's controlling my greatest expression and preventing me from meeting that greatest destiny. And so it's just so important to remember that. Remember, the beginning of it.
I'll add just an answer you said, ask both of us. So if you look at the video that Peter Guber did with Mark Victor Hansen online at YouTube, what happens is that Peter says, look, Mark Victor Hansen took more rejection than anybody I know, even though I got a lot of rejected films and a lot of rejected actors and actresses wouldn't work for me, and now athletic talent. But he said, this guy is so dyslexic. I'm not dyslexic at all, but he said, Mark is so dyslexic, he thinks the word no means on.
That's a great thing to do. Yeah.
So I couldn't pay, you couldn't have paid a higher compliment. I loved it. So, but it's live and it's on air, and people read it and they write us every day and say, that is so nice. Can you teach me that? I grail everybody listening, just like I gave Matt and you permission to ask anyone. Everyone's got permission now to make their no's mean on, because the first no in sales is usually not serious. It just means give me more information.
Yeah. And you can make it a challenge for yourself. It's almost a game, and that's how I frame it for ourselves. And when we ask for podcast guests, we do try to ask big, or we don't try, we do ask big. And you mentioned that, Mark, earlier. And I love that. Yeah, our buddy Roland Frazier from Digital Marketer, he's like, it's easier to just go to the top. You might as well go big. It's the same thing as if you ask someone on the bottom, or if you're trying to go on a podcast or whoever, collaborate, JV, joint venture type thing, or whatever it might be, and just asking for help. Go big with it. You might as well. What do you got to lose? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. We agree. You have nothing to lose. You have absolutely everything to gain. This is your one life here. So live it to the fullest, and don't be afraid to ask for anything. And really, take the time with this book to reconnect to the asking journey, because it is powerful. It's magical. And you're going to just reveal parts of your life that you never knew were possible.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, it's definitely it's one of these books where you can kind of just flip around to a section and then dive right into the list of questions, or even the little summary box at the end. I always like those at the end of the chapters, because it's quick reference, but either way, it's a great manual. I could see that everyone can take and should grab and use that as such, as a manual to essentially then start your practice of journaling or meditating and that whole, that whole list of things that kind of open you up. Because it's kind of giving yourself a lot of open loops, it seems like. And then you're letting others and yourself just, come up with the answers, the breadcrumbs that lead you on your way.
Exactly. I love it.
Well, you mentioned Amazon as being a great spot, and bookstores, if folks have them around them, and you have a book club. Speaking of that really quick, and how people can join that as well.
So yeah, you can get the book on Amazon. That's just the easiest way. And you can get it in Kindle or audiobook, or it's a beautiful hardbound book. And I love real books. So that's really fun for me. We have a book club that we're doing, and we want to invite everybody to that book club because we want to help encourage people to keep taking the asking journey. So after you buy the book, just go to askthebookclub.com and we'll send you an invitation to book club, and let's keep the conversation going.
I think it's great. Yeah. And that's just going to be an open door to people to just ask questions and get that momentum, and in a safe space, even though we're all in a safe space.
Yeah.
Just ask questions.
Exactly.
Oh my God. Well, do you have more books together in the future? Are you working on anything, or?
We've got a lot more coming. I can promise you that. Some of which, there's nothing that I write that she's not going to help me with, and nothing she writes I wouldn't help her with. I mean, we're indefatigably in love because when I went through a long ago, painful divorce, I wrote 267 things I needed in my ideal wife. We had to have the same values, the same spiritual. We had to want to travel, have our own business, all those kind of things. She was 267 on 267, so it's sort of heavenly for me because we're not just soulmates, two hearts and one soul, but we're also twin flames. We mirror each other.
It's amazing. Really interesting. Yeah. That's really cool. I love that. And the fact that, and that's the thing. You got clarity, Mark, on exactly what you want through experience and probably some things that you desire that you didn't know you wanted, out of that experience. And look who showed up. How cool is that?
That's right. Good thing I didn't know there were 267. That was a lot of pressure. I'm glad I didn't find out till afterwards.
It would have been a little stressful, huh?
I thought that one through because we believe life is about asking. And when we did meet it, she came to an author 101. We got to go to a great restaurant in Hollywood, and it was so much fun. The guy looks at her, and truthfulness just emanates out every pore of her being. He said, "Okay, I give up. Who is she?" There's like 50 people, so I couldn't buy our way in at 9:30 at night. I said, "I asked," and I was joking, but I said, "You don't recognize her?" Now the guy's mind's going on steroids. He's going, "Oh my God, I read InStyle magazine, Vogue, People, and I can't." Okay, I give up. Who is she? Now we're of Danish descent, so joking again. I said, "She's a queen of Denmark." He said, "No, she's not."
Because we're having.
All of a sudden he goes, "Oh my gosh, she is. Who are you?" Back to questions. Who travels with the queen? He said, "Oh my God, you're the king." Hold on one second. I got a table for you. All you're looking. You'll just walk up and they get in there. So the question's always the answer, even if you're teasing and having fun. But once we got in, we couldn't not. I mean, that was the head chef serving us, and it was meant to be. That's the point. When you ask questions like you've asked throughout here, ask yourself, ask others, and ask God, and you start to master this, your whole life unfolds with bliss and wonder and bountiful good stuff in magical, mystical ways.
I love it. I think we're just beginning. I feel like we're we're 4 years in on this podcast, but we have so much more to go. And just in life and asking not even the right questions, just more questions and get that momentum going, and the feedback's invaluable. Thank you both so much for your time.
Thank you, guys. This has been wonderful. And
time disappeared.
Yeah.
It did. So I appreciate you. We'll talk soon.